Hello and welcome to the East Lampeter Township Public Meeting. All participants are now informed that this meeting is being recorded. This meeting is also being offered virtually utilizing Zoom, which is a cloud-based platform for remote video and audio conferencing. The Zoom application is free to the public. The general public is therefore able to join the meeting by connection through the internet or by calling in by phone. The public is also able to observe the meeting on the Township's YouTube channel. Please continue to check the Township website calendar for any updates related to these public meetings. Agendas for these public meetings will also be available on the Township's website. Please be reminded that this meeting is being video and audio recorded and will be posted to the Township's YouTube channel for viewing. The meeting will now proceed with the chairman calling the meeting to order and identifying all other members present in the meeting room and those joining the meeting via Zoom. The chairman will then confirm those members joining by Zoom can be heard.
Welcome to the Monday, March 18th meeting of the East Lampeter Township Board of Supervisors. My name is Corey Meyer. I'm the chair. I'm joined by Vice Chair Ethan Denny, Supervisor Roger Rutt, and Mike Thornton. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Can hear you loud and clear. We have a full room. It's so great to see all of our families and first responders, and everyone else that's here for our meeting. First, we're going to pledge to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, number 3 on the agenda, we have public comment for non-agenda items only. We have anyone here for public comment for non-agenda items? Okay. Just want to announce we did have an executive session regarding a real estate matter right prior to this meeting. We have a few items of note for the consent agenda, and then we'll do our presentations for the 2023 Volunteer of the Year Award. So you're going to have to listen to me read a whole bunch of stuff. So first on the consent agenda, we have approval of the March 18th, 2024 Board of Supervisors meeting agenda. We have B, approval of the minutes of the Monday, March 4th, 2024 regular meeting. We have C, financial security reduction request for Devon Creek Phase 2, New Holland Pike. The amount of the recommended reduction is $2,201,793.91, leaving a remaining balance of $609,050.84 for remaining required improvements. We have which is offer of time extension for Township Review and Action for Wawa Stormwater Management Plan 2330, which is 2126 and 2132 Lincoln Highway East. They offered an extension of 90 days to June 16th, but we actually have a meeting on June 17th. So the motion will be for extending until the regular scheduled meeting on June 17th, 2024. And this is the first time extension for this application. We have E, offer of time extension for Township Review and Action, Lancaster Auto Detail and Sales Stormwater Management Plan 24-3. Which is 1650 Lincoln Highway East, and they're offering an extension of 90 days to July 10th. However, we'll need to take board action at our scheduled meeting on June 17th, 2024. So Hutch, would this motion be for extension to June 17th or July 10th?
Whichever the board prefers.
Okay. I'll look for let's do July 10th. Okay. We have F, approval of pay invoices from all funds totaling $368,137.81. There's a few items of note. We have $48,245 even to Susquehanna Chrysler Dodge for a police vehicle purchase. $28,926 to RS Hollinger and Sons for 2 riding mowers. $23,345.94 to Susquehanna Ford for police vehicle purchase, and that's net of trade-ins. $21,774.60 to Motorola Solutions for Police Department video equipment, for dash cams. $67,652 for first quarter contributions to the 4 township fire companies, $16,913 each. $14,000 to Lenza for a first quarter contribution, and $11,100 for first quarter contributions to libraries. And the breakdown for that is $1,864.80 to Lancaster, $2,430.90 to Peckway, $2,486.40 to Strasburg, $4,317.90 to Manheim Township. Gentlemen, that is the consent agenda. For the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda for March 18th, 2020.
And motion made by Roger, second by Ethan. Any board comment?
Just a comment on the item 4E, Lancaster Auto Detail. I mean, another letter indicated that their engineer had passed away, but that property we've had concerns with over the years for not following through in a proper manner. So that's just one to keep a close eye on as we move forward.
Great. Any other comments from the board or the public for the consent agenda? Okay, we'll do, okay, if I do a all in favor, even with the chair says all in favor. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, next we have presentations of 2023 Volunteer of the Year Awards. First up, we have Christian Miller, Hand in Hand Fire Company. You want to come up front? Each volunteer we have a lot. Inspiration, there it is. Look at that. There you go. And it reads, Christian Miller, grateful appreciation for your service to the community of East Lancaster Township and Fire Company 2023 Volunteer of the Year, presented this day, March 18th, 2024. Congrats. Thanks for your service. Here's your file. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm wearing jeans today. I should have dressed up. So Francisco Rivera, grateful appreciation for your service to the community of East Lancaster Township, Lafayette Fire Company, 2023 Volunteer of the Year, presented this day, March 18th, 2024. Congrats. Hey, Jacob King. Jacob King. Wow. Jacob K. King, and grateful appreciation for your service to the community of East Lancaster Township, Bronx Fire Company 2023 Volunteer of the Year, presented this day, March 18th, 2024. Congrats. Hey, grateful appreciation of your service to the community of East Lancaster Township, with the Fire Company 2023 Volunteer of the Year, presented this day, March 18th, 2024. Jennifer Roden. Grateful appreciation for your 25 years of service to the community of East Lancaster Township, Lafayette Fire Company, presented this day, March 18th, 2024. Thanks. Thank you, Chief. Thank you to all of our volunteers, and especially our the family members that allow your spouses, your parents, your children to come out and support our community. As everyone knows, we have 4 volunteer companies. We have LEMSA from emergency medical services perspective, and we have our police force as well. You guys all work so well together, and I'm proud that I'm a part of East Lamphere Township because of, frankly, our volunteer fire companies and our police and LEMSA. So thank you. Thank you for your service, and thanks for coming out. I'm assuming you're also here for the next thing on the agenda, which is our Officer of the Year as well. So if you want to stay and just hear a little about from Chief. Oh,
Can we
yeah.
just announce what Mike
Sure.
would like to say? Something?
Oh, Mike, absolutely. Yeah. So Mike, Supervisor Thornton is our Emergency Services Committee representative from the Supervisors. He's been involved now for a couple of years. Mr. Thornton.
Yeah, I just want to wish everybody just the best and congratulations and our appreciation for everything they do for our community. You know, I've learned a lot about our fire companies and the sacrifices they make. I'm glad you mentioned their families, Corey, because you know, for them to put the time in they do, you have to have that family support. So thank you all.
Thank you. Chief.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'd like to take a moment to recognize our 2023 Police Officer of the Year. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Ken McCombs of the Leola Lions Club to come up to present the award, as this award is presented by the Lions Club. And then secondly, the recipient of the award, Sergeant Jeff Nicholas, if you would come up, please.
So Sergeant Jeff Nicholas was hired September 14th, 1998. He completed 25 years of service on September 14th, 2023. Sergeant Nicholas is a graduate of Columbia High School and Shippensburg University. Sergeant Nicholas was assigned to Lancaster County Drug Task Force for 2 years in 2003 and 2005. Sergeant Nicholas was promoted to the patrol sergeant in 2016. He has supervised 3rd platoon since that time. Sergeant Nicholas has received 6 letters of commendation over his career, as well as numerous letters of appreciation from the general public thanking him for his service. In 2023, Sergeant Nicholas was voted as East Lamphere Township Police Officer of the Year by his peers. And my honor to present it to you.
Again, thank you all for attending. If you do want to stay and hear the annual report from Chief, you're welcome to stay. But most of you might, and you're free to go if you're allowed to stay as well. It's a public meeting. I mean, I knew you like. Change your food. You can start. Yeah. Just speak one.
So we'll start off east side. Well, let's say here, we'll give you an overview of the broad picture of the activity for 2023. You can see the respondents to 57 projects. 2022 and those numbers. But East Lampeter calls ended up being an increase of 5.3% just for East Lampeter alone. Total reports taken were up 8%. East Lampeter specifically was up 7%. Totals were down by 2%. So we fell from 779 in 22 to 7. We're down 7 to 99 in 2023. Accidents were also down 8%. East Lampeter crashes specifically were down 7.5%. And total false 11%. East Lampeter false alarms were down 9%. Moving on to the second slide, I believe would be the curfew. We responded to 6 separate incidents in 2023, and those 6 incidents involved total. There were no citizen complaints that the police department received, and we experienced no difficulty in enforcing the curfew ordinance. And it is my recommendation that the board would keep the curfew ordinance in place, given the benefits to the citizens by reducing juvenile-related crimes during overnight hours. Moving on to the next slide. We have use of force. Use of force reports were down 33% in 2023 from 2022. We went from 31 to 21 in the year's time. The types of force that were used are documented there for you on your slide or another paper. On the right side of that screen, you'll see citizens complaints. We had 1 citizen complaint of an alleged excessive use of force. And this incident was investigated. It was determined that the officer was within policies and guidelines of the department. And so the offense, while it did happen, the officer was in fact. The following slide after that, moving on to sick time. The police department is down 15%. We're down 87%. That went from 490 down to 64. COVID hours were down from 750 to 40, and non-uniform sick time was up 35% in 2023. Next slide is police department overtime. This also was down from 2022. We were down 15% in 2023. I'm sorry. Total overtime was down 22%. I was looking at the wrong place here. And the total cost for overtime was down 25%. So the difference between those two numbers are what we're reimbursed by the state and the DEA for special details and different job assignments.
Yeah.
I could go into some breakdowns of those numbers if you wanted in terms of the maintain for and grants and miscellaneous and shift overload if you desire.
I think we're good. I think you get a question. Fine.
The next slide should cover alarms. Most frequent alarm was Longhorn Steakhouse, going from 9 in 22 up to 41 in 23. Followed up with Roth Drep 22 and Smoketown Elementary 22, which had held the #1 spot. Sorry, yeah, in 2023 they only had 22 calls in 2023.
Chief, on the Upper Lake Huck side, I see this huge number of 146, I think, for Leola Family Health. Are they? They have the same ordinance as us for false alarms in Upper Lake Huck?
As far as billing?
Yeah, correct.
To be honest, I'm not aware. I would have to look into that.
Okay.
I'm inclined to say no, they do not, but
Yeah, it just might be a conversation that we have with them at some point about, sharing our ordinance with them. That's excessive.
I'll be speaking with their manager this week,
Okay.
and I
Yeah.
can convey the.
I mean, they're gonna see the numbers too. It's
Mhm.
just, I feel bad when our firefighters have to go out to false alarms every,
Sure.
I mean, that's every other day possibly, right? So. Yeah, okay, great.
Slide we should be moving on to is accident with crash locations. So our top location was 30 in the old Philadelphia Pike, 30 eastbound in the old Philadelphia Pike ramp. Followed up by Route 30 in Walnut Street. That's westbound only there. Followed up by Route 30 eastbound in Lincoln Highway East. Followed up by Route 30 in Greenfield Road. So those numbers in that order went from, old Philadelphia Pike and 30, we were at 28 the year before, down to 22. 30 in Walnut Street stayed the same at 21. 30 East and Lincoln Highway East, dropped by half. They were 24 in 2022, down to 12. And 30 in Greenfield, they were 21, dropped down to 12. So good direction for less accidents.
Yeah.
As far as the block locations go, these vary from year to year, but we see the 2100 block there with 48. That had 55 the year before.
And what's on that 2100 block? Is that like?
You're in the area of Friendly where that starts.
Okay. Yeah. So Lancaster Mennonite.
It starts at the corner of Oakview
Oakview goes east.
to the village, because LMS is still 2176.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean that.
That's turning in the area.
Yeah.
And last on the screen, you'll see the top locations by street name. Obviously, the highest one there with Lincoln Highway with 332, but that was also down 389 of the year prior. So all accidents in total numbers were down, including
It's great.
the breakdown of them when they be recorded. We go from there. We have vehicle pursuits, and we had 9 total in 2023. That's down from 11 in 2022. None of them resulted in crashes. None of them were induced stop, meaning you can stop, fix, or some other means. 2 of them stopped voluntarily. In many of these cases, I've said this before, the officers are willing to just get a tag number and then they stop pursuing. And I'm very proud of them for that, right? On the street, that was something you didn't do. So they've come quite a ways for that. The last portion of the crash is there is the Hempfield Manor screen. And you can see that the team had a total of 8 call-outs, which is 1 more than they had in 2022. Of those 8, East Lampeter were responsible for 2 of those call-outs. Now, East Lampeter also had 2 fatalities. They weren't crash team was not called out for each one of those. They were for one of them, and the other one they weren't. So those 2 fatalities were called the motorcycle and tractor trailer incident in the old Philadelphia Pike, and then it was a vehicle for pedestrian and another block Pitney Road at night.
Yeah.
Statistics by month, the next screen. They fluctuate from year to year. This year, June was our busiest month with 1,038 calls, as compared to a little over 900 in March and August of 2022. So just a change in months. Incidents by type be the next screen we have. And you can see from the far right moving to the left, first 9 categories there from right to left are in the same identical order as they were in 2022. So basically the type of calls that we're responding to from 2022 to 2023 in terms of volume first 9 are identical. The first difference being assisting assists, sorry, and that would replace domestic calls in the number 10 spot there. Other crime data, next screen. So with the exception of robbery, which we had 7, and burglary, which we had 38. And I would like to note that the bulk of the same individual who was arrested in February. All other crimes, including fraud, assaults, and overdoses, were all down. In some cases, pretty significantly. So that's a good report there as far as the type of crime trends that we're seeing.
So the burglary, one person doing multiple shows up as multiple.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That single offender was responsible for 38 burglaries between East Lampeter, Upper Laycock, Strasburg Township, Strasburg Borough. And there was at least one other jurisdiction. Yes.
And our detective caught him.
That's right. That's right. We had the drone out. And a foot chase ensued, and Detective Chris Jones. Make sure that video sometime.
I've seen it.
PCC statistics page. So I'll throw this in here to show you the value of what you're getting in terms of comparing East Lampeter to other agencies. In terms of the workload percentage. And I get that by comparing the number of sworn officers and the number of sworn patrol officers uniformed from a given agency to their arrest numbers. And you can see East Lampeter highlighted on the way through there. And if you get out to the last 4 columns, you can see that our percentages are in some cases higher than or just below that of Lancaster City. And then once you get past our numbers and then Manheim Township underneath us, the numbers drop off dramatically.
Yeah.
And just in terms of population alone, East Hempfield Township isn't far away from our population numbers, and you can see the differences of what their arrest per officer ratios are there.
This is great. This is a great report. Thank you.
And the very last thing I'll go over is the hotel crime data. So total calls have dropped. The number of calls at specific establishments has seen quite a bit of change. You can recall that in the past, 6 had previously been on the top of our list. It's now moved down to fifth place with a 70% drop in calls that we've responded to there. And other establishments have also seen a reduction since the passing of the hotel ordinance. So 25 weeks have passed since this was enacted. We have responded to 338 calls service. So it's just about half of a year. And so if you took your 338 and times it by 2, you're looking at 700 calls. We were over 1,000 for the 2022 calendar year. So if we stay on par, that's a pretty good reduction. I'm very pleased with it.
Yeah.
We're averaging about 52 calls a month with about 6 ordinance violations per month in those 52 calls. So
great. Thank you. That's great information.
Any questions?
Who does the in-house investigations for the exonerated?
They're conducted by Captain Check almost exclusively. I would have done them when I was in his position as captain, and I'm entirely out of it until the conclusion, simply because I may be the one who has to enact discipline. List of facts and that's fortunate.
Yeah.
Number 2, I'm glad you underlined the no chase rules or whatever. And you would explain that 1 or 2 report and enforce that.
It takes a lot for someone to stop chasing after somebody who's fleeing from them. But I'm proud of the guys.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chief. Any other questions for Chief Zerby?
I have just one.
Sure.
I just wanted to follow up.
Yes.
In what specific areas have you seen?
Specifically, the number of times that the hotel itself is being the one who's calling rather than somebody calling from a room and dialing out to get on a 911 line. So that was part of the goal was for the hotels to become more aware of what's happening on their properties and take action on it first. So we've seen that coming up. And the second thing is getting those hotels to have their people trained so that when they see a police car on the property, find out why. You know, if they're just making a loop through the property, fine. You know, they're patrolling, checking for whatever that they're looking for. But if they're coming on the property and responding to a room, not being content to just let them do that without knowing why they're responding to that room. Figure out what the cause is, what brought the police there, and if it's something that they need to take action on as a hotel, then please do so. I can't require them to do that, but that's both of their have seen an increase in cooperation.
Great. Any other questions for Chief Zerby? Thank you again. Thank you for the officers. Great job, and hopefully numbers continue to come down.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, we have 9A, housing plan presentation. Todd, assuming you can hear us and see us, and we have your presentation up.
Good evening, Board of Supervisors. How are you?
Doing well.
Good. Yeah, actually, I didn't want to use this particular. This is the full report. I was going to actually use a presentation segment. So if I could share my screen with that.
I think we're going to give you, Tara, are we going to give him access to share? Yep. Yeah, you'll have access in a couple seconds.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think you want to go through 131 pages.
I agree. Let's
see. All right. Hopefully this will work out. Let's see. Chrome. I had this issue earlier today on a Zoom call. I don't know why this is happening. Let me just see here. Hold on. Okay, that's almost set. Sorry, I'm just trying to bring it up. Wow. This is unexpected technical difficulties, and I'm not sure why.
No, we can move to the next agenda item, and then you guys can continue working on it. It's not going to have any impact.
Super.
Great. We'll move to 9B, withdrawal of recorded land development plan 1617 H&F Tire 1834, 1836 Lincoln Highway East. I see Mr. Fitzgerald's in the room. Plan was recorded in 2017, and the owners indicated no longer wishes to complete the approved recorded plan. Any other information from staff?
At the time the plan was recorded, of course, as is normal, financial security was posted. And so in order to have the board take action to release that financial security, this action needs to be taken by the landowner so that it can be.
Understood. Any comments from Mr. Fitzgerald? If you want to come up and just state your name for the record and your address, even though we know you, but for the public.
Barry Fitzgerald Senior, owner of H&F Tire.
Any comments on it or
We
any?
just don't need it anymore.
Sounds good.
That's it.
Sounds good. Okay. We get a motion to withdraw.
Motion to withdraw.
Okay, motion made by Mike Thornton. Second by Roger. Any comments from the board? Any comments from the public? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's withdrawn. Thank you, sir. Okay. Yeah. The next one will probably take a lot more time. Todd's still working.
Yeah,
on
you
it?
know what? I don't know what is happening such that I can't bring it up. I mean, I have it open on my end and it's not showing when I go to share it. Let me just cancel, see if I'll try sharing again, see if it comes up.
Todd, can you maybe email it to Tara Hitchens?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Terry, yeah.
Okay. We'll move to the next item and then we'll come back. So we have 10A Calico Creek Sketch Plan 24-1, 2331 Lincoln Highway East redevelopment of the roadway and property. Come up and say hello and tell us who you are.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present this evening. Exciting evening to present with all the awards going on, so hopefully I get as much of applause. I'm Anthony Kushine with Lancaster Design Build. Lancaster Design Build has been employed by the owner of the property, Mr. Martin, to prepare a preliminary sketch plan. They purchased the property, I'm not sure exactly the date they purchased it, but they purchased it recently. I'll get you familiar with the property. It is the property the old roadway in is on. And working with the Martins to develop a plan for an expansion of their business. They currently own the property for Calico Creek.
Yep.
So they want to improve the facilities. What we presented to the planning commission, went through a number of things. We wanted to make sure that the big hurdles were out of the way before we dove into the full land development plan. So we've been in contact with township engineers, with township staff, and with township traffic engineers. And so far, this review letter from DMA basically goes through all those items. And we are, presenting this evening just to get you familiar with the property plans, and then we begin to address the items on this review letter when we incorporate them into our full land development plan for the property. So this property is 2331, as you mentioned, about a 3.5 acre parcel. Currently holds multiple buildings, the roadway inn being one of them, and the old comedy club being nestled all the way in the back of the property. This plan, as we propose it, is going to remove all the buildings on the property and completely renovate the entire space. So it is zoned regional commercial. So the building we're proposing fits right in the zone uses of the property. We are proposing a retail facility that the review actually noted that we incorrectly called it warehousing, not a warehouse. It's storage associated with the retail facility. So it'll be a continuation of the Calico Creek retail facility nearby or next door, and just an expansion of that. So I'll just run down through the list of items pretty quickly, and then I'll ask you guys if you have any questions.
Yeah.
So item number 1, zoning. This will be noted on the plans of being warehouse. It's actually storage associated with the retail facility, so it wouldn't fall under warehousing regulations for this zone. There was a clarification about setback, the side yard setback, where it adjoins zone separate or differently than the other properties that adjoin it. We will comply with that setback. notation on that. Same with item number 3, clarifying that this. We'll clarify also for number 4, we'll clarify the percentages of the building when we get to. We literally were just doing some very preliminary plans just to get the process started. Item number 6, we will also show that this is in the district. For item number 7, there's an existing agreement. We'll not take the existing agreement on our application. There is, I believe that's correct, right, Randy? There's an existing agreement parking neighbor.
You're talking about the access drive or the?
Oh, yes, I apologize.
Yeah, off-street parking,
Yeah,
access to the driveway.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. Item number 8, we will show a fence on our plan, which means comply with that comment. Item number 9, similarly, will be. Landscaping. Item number 10, we'll be revising the parking aisle to be compliant with parking regulations. We will also clarify the traffic flow at the entrance and the exit to meet existing easements. Item number 12, and I believe this is maybe conversation with the township engineer. They were asking for fencing, and we had proposed doing tree screening instead of that. That's still a discussion point, but either way, probably screening of some sort, whether it's a fence or trees. So, and then item number 13, supplemental regulations, which is section 23-700. We'll review that as well before we do the official convention. We're under the Saldo section. We are evaluating that currently with the owners if they want a sidewalk connection. At the time when we submitted this, we did not show one. Since then, the sidewalk connection to the sidewalk already there.
Yes.
Item number 2 really is in reference to the streetscape plan that's coming in the near future. Been in contact with Mr. Seasholtz from the township, getting documents so we can incorporate them into the appropriate yard and strip of sidewalk and any retaining walls that are going to be required. We'll incorporate that into the plan. And then item number 4, we are not proposing any off-site improvements. So number 5. 6 is to back to the streetscapes plan, which we will continue the conversation with staff. Fine.
Yeah, I understand from staff that the building in the back is historic. You have to take pictures and send them to the historic society, or
that was something I was not aware of. So that was not part of
that true. I mean, it's
Identified as historic property, yes.
That was not part of the review and my attention previously. So we'll go through the process with that. So
okay. So familiar with the streetscape plan, which we talked about. I know those improvements were made for the property to the east. I guess talk to us a little bit just about the intersection, the PennDOT intersection, the traffic light.
Certainly. Well, we employed a local traffic engineer to study or to review the traffic that we are anticipating for this property. And basically, it's an extrapolation of their current facility into the new facility. And we were conservative with our reviews. Utilizing those numbers, we presented them to St. Peter Township traffic engineer, and according to their review of the project, they feel that the additional, or any traffic that is going to be generated because of this new development still falls within the current design of the intersection. So they feel no, there will be no need to do any traffic studies with PennDOT. So that was better out. We got the letter from the East Lampard Township.
Grove Miller.
Right, it certainly indicates that, you know, the driveway would continue to be a medium volume driveway. Staff's concern is that the amount of traffic should be evaluated so that if there are need to change traffic signal timings or something of that sort, it might not be any other physical changes, but it should be evaluated for, at least for that purpose.
Okay, is that a conversation with staff, or are we like, is there a period of time that you're looking to evaluate the traffic on, or?
You know, whatever a typical traffic analysis would be for this kind of change and that type of intersection.
Okay. Yeah, our traffic engineers, we employ TPD, traffic planning and design. They're a pretty well-known name, and they corresponded directly with J States, and we can continue.
Yeah, no, their evaluation type of driveway is fine. I don't think there's any question it is a medium volume driveway, but doesn't address traffic signal timing that maybe needed to accommodate the additional traffic.
Other questions for the applicant?
I just have one question. I wasn't sure, a little bit of the audio goes in and out. Ralph, were you suggesting that study be done after the project is complete and the business is open?
No, typically that's done as a part of the preliminary planning or final land development planning process to, based upon, you know, traffic engineering principles, determine what, if any, improvement would be needed. And by doing that, you know, would be included in the financial security posted for the plan.
Okay, I'm sorry if I missed a bit of it sounded like the applicant employed a traffic engineer and they compared their results to our traffic engineer. Is that correct?
They provided an analysis of the driveway, and our township traffic engineer agreed that remain a medium volume driveway.
Okay, so one is the size of the driveway, the other is actual traffic.
Signal.
They're related. I mean, there was an evaluation of some traffic volumes to make a determination about the type of driveway, but there wasn't an evaluation of the signal timings that would go along with that driveway.
Okay. So more about signal timing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for taking us through the letter. Other questions or comments? Okay. We do have to take action on the sketch plan. You guys back in front for other. Do have a comment from a member of the public. Sure, you can.
Pete's, yeah.
Pete's gonna come up. Yep.
Isn't exactly what we're talking about. We want to make sure we accommodate all the extra traffic that would be on the driveway there, and also school service that site at the present. Stormwater was being carried over to the on the farm originally, and we did some improvements there trying to solve that and carry it into the stormwater on our site there to accommodate the farmer from the washouts that were happening all in the fields back there. I don't know if that has been addressed at this point where I'm going to there or.
We've not done any stormwater design yet.
No stormwater or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, you know, we can accommodate that with good planning and might be better to expand the stormwater basin that's up there, you know, on our site there now, and be able to calculate and combine that all together back there.
I guess one thing we can say is that there won't be any more impervious area on the site after the development than there is now.
Yeah,
Possible.
we never addressed the stormwater that's there now. It's gone. All these years.
Stormwater management is a part of the process, and then they will have to comply with the ordinance.
Good.
And we're willing to cooperate to be able to take care of that. If there's a way the engineers can figure out how to do that without a lot of extra expense in there.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Scales. Thank you. Good. Other questions from the public or the board before a motion? And then we'll ask for that again after the motion. Okay. Can I have a motion for the Calico Creek sketch plan 24-1?
We've captured or discussed all the items.
Yeah.
We can approve the plan.
Anything related to the signal timing, how would we word that into the motion if we want to add signal timing? I mean, isn't that part of the land development plan at that time? I mean, it's really just a discussion. Yeah, so at this point, the letter, I mean, we're telling the applicant, we want you to look at the signal timing. If it hasn't been addressed by the time of the land development plan, we can bring it up at that point.
Yes.
Okay, so we're asking nicely to look at the timing. It sounds like Mr. Skiat is looking to maybe help you guys with the stormwater as well. So that's our, yeah. So I think at this point, it's a approval of the letter.
I make a motion to approve the sketch plan as presented, conditioned on the township engineer's letter. February 7th.
Motion, motion made by Ethan. Did you say second? Sorry. Second by Roger. Motion, any comment from the board or the public? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you. Looking forward to seeing that project completed. Yeah, all great. Thank you, guys. Okay, back to you. Back to item 8 or 9A, housing plan presentation. Todd Poole, forward planning. Presentation is up. Todd, you may be on mute. Oh no, maybe.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Can hear you now, Todd.
All right, super. Let's see. Let me see if I can put this in presentation mode. Hopefully that won't. Let's see.
We're controlling.
Okay, you got it. Okay.
Hold on. Just 1 sec.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all the way to the right. There you go. Present up a little bit. There, right there.
There you go.
Okay. All right, and I guess you're controlling. So next slide.
There we go.
All right, super. And you can click it again, it will animate. Basically, so commissioners, we completed a thorough housing analysis if you can go back, per the scope of services that we proposed. It looked at housing initiatives or a review of housing initiatives. We performed a comprehensive market analysis, which looked at demographic trends, residential real estate, housing pipeline. We looked at comparative analysis to other townships, redevelopment opportunities, identification of financial strengths and challenges. And then we had a first public meeting, of course, to present findings from that market analysis, segment. We also performed outreach with a survey of employers, or actually the employees of large employers, residential realtor interviews with housing organizations and private real estate developers, and then identifying gaps in housing supply demand. And then, of course, followed by a second public meeting, and then development of implementation strategies, recommendations, and product of draft and final report, which are now all delivered. Next slide, please. So, when starting this process out, these are some of the key questions that were asked to be addressed, and we believe they have been addressed in this report, such as, how is demand for housing changing? Does the supply of housing match demand for households and commuting workers? I'm not going to read all of these, but these questions really are addressed in the findings of our market study, which again is very comprehensive, includes supply demand of housing generally, and we focused in on different areas of the township with respect to different types of housing, both multifamily rental as well as single family dwelling units. Next. So this is going to be the Reader's Digest version of the study that we conducted. As I identified earlier, this is a more than 120-page report, so there's a lot in it. Some of the key findings from this is that you do have a very tight housing inventory. That is to say that you've got really less than 2% vacancy rates for owner-occupied and renter-occupied housing units, which is really, that's just really too tight. Ordinarily, what we like to see in a healthy housing market is anywhere from 4 to 7% vacancy rate, which allows for turnover or churn, as is the term used. In a market such as yours with such tight inventory, that is a recipe for upward pressure on pricing for both houses as well as rental units, which obviously exacerbates the affordability issue. Part of that also is exacerbated by the fact that you've got a lot of workers who are commuting into the area, a number of whom would gladly give up that commute if quality affordable housing were available to them. So that adds to the pressure. And one of the other key findings that we identify in our report is that you do have a mismatch between bedroom unit counts and household size. So what does that mean? It is not specific to your community. We see this in a lot of regions that we study for clients as well as nationally. What has been identified is that you have a smaller household unit size. That is to say that, whereas 20, 30 years ago, household size was 3.2 people, mom, dad, and kids. Today, you have a lot of 1 and 2 person households. Some of that's being driven by divorce. Some of it's being driven by, just people never, looking to cohabitate with someone else. Some of it's driven by, widowers or widows. But the fact of the matter is that the fastest growing household formation unit in this country is being formed by one and or two person households. So, what's the so what question there? The so what question is that in your township, most of your housing is single family, and it is designed with 3 and 4 bedroom units, right? Not exactly ideal for 1 and 2 bedroom, or I'm sorry, 1 and 2 person households. So there's that mismatch that we've identified, and which really speaks to probably facilitating more multifamily housing units that are accommodative of studios, 1 and 2 bedroom units, which, some of that's coming online, but probably not enough to address the, kind of the mismatch that we see. Next. One of the things that we identified as a key finding is that your economy is shifting, and with it, so your housing demand. This again is something that we see nationally. The greatest expanding industry is healthcare, and that industry, includes both low and moderate income workers principally. So these folks are, clearly going to be looking for workforce housing in terms of the pricing, whether that be rental or owner occupied. And also because of your location and the attraction of tourism and the types of businesses that have located in your area, you've got a lot of accommodation and food services businesses in your particular geography, which employ principally lower income workers. These are jobs that relatively speaking don't pay a lot. And yet these are workers who, if they're going to, show up to work, they need to live relatively nearby where they work. What we're identifying, and we certainly saw this in the survey that we conducted, is a number of these workers feel priced out of this area. They cannot afford to live in East Lampeter Township, or quite honestly, really anywhere close to here, for the simple reason that there is not enough housing affordable to the incomes that they're being paid. This is not an East Lampeter Township problem. I can tell you for a fact, because we work all over the place. We see this in a lot of jurisdictions, particularly those that have, tourism type industries as one of their principal industries. There's also, based on our supply demand estimates or analysis that we conducted, there is an unmet demand through the year 2028. So from basically now until 2028, if no other development projects come online that we did not identify in our study. So the way that we do this is we identify all the different housing projects that are in the pipeline of some form or fashion. So that means either planning stage, approval stage, and or under construction. Even notwithstanding all of that, based on the number of projected households that are to form, pent up demand from commuting workers, and also taking into consideration housing that basically is physically obsolescent that is currently in your community, we've identified that there is going to be a net demand of a little over 700 units by the year 2028. Now, obviously, that can change in a matter of a year or two if a developer shows up and says, "I'm going to build," I'd like to build another 200 units. So, but for right now, that's what we've identified as needing to be delivered to the market to address unmet demand. Next. This kind of goes back to what I just said. Affordable housing is beyond reach for individuals and families. A lot of the folks that responded to the survey, which was an online survey that was circulated on your website and among employers for folks to respond to. And it was a very healthy response. A number of those individuals and or families were basically saying, "Look, we're getting priced out." Whereas 5-10 years ago we could afford to live here. Now it's becoming a lot more challenging financially. And again, this is not just an East Lampeter Township problem. We see this in a lot of locations. Housing affordability is literally a national crisis, and we speak to this issue to clients and presentations that we give at conferences. So, but you are also experiencing it. And let me say this, commissioners, housing and economic development are inextricably linked. All right. I cannot emphasize that more. If you have a housing policy that is, not, basically meeting the needs of those who need housing, not before long, your economic development environment will suffer. And that is simply based on the fact that if folks workers can't afford to live in the location or the geography where they are employed, one or two things happen. Either the employer has to dig deeper in their pockets to pay them, which obviously impacts them, or, which often is more likely the case, those employees, many of whom are quite highly valued, will move out of the area to places where they can't afford to live and work. So it can undermine your, economic development environment, really in the short run, not only in the long run. So that's why we say you really want to address these issues as soon as possible before it does start to impact employers' ability to retain their talent. Next. Not that this is a huge issue, but we do, we look at this particular metric whenever we do housing studies. In your community, as of, at least as of when we did the study, you have about 146, call it 150 units that are what are referred to as other vacant. Other vacant is a classification that the Census Bureau uses, and it's not, it's kind of this arcane definition, but basically it's somebody owns the unit, but they're not putting it on the market because, they're using it for storage, or, perhaps it's an illegal action, or it's being repaired or renovated, or even, we've come across situations where there's a sentimental value to it, and the owner of that unit just can't part with it, or can't, bear to rent it, or whatever. But, given that you do have something of a housing crisis here, and 100 and almost 50 units, maybe you want to look at incentivizing those owners of those units to make them available. And in some cases, that might be providing them with financial assistance through, CDBG funds or some other funds that might be necessary to help them renovate the unit, to bring it up to code, or whatever they need to do to put it on the market. So that's one thing. But clearly the bigger, I think the bigger issue here is getting more units developed, as is the case nationally, getting more housing units developed, and whether it's on your remaining and buildable land, or through some of the, the policies that we're going to show you in a second. Next. Okay. So, we could have come up with a number of objectives, but we felt that, one, we want to make the objective for creating more affordable housing realistic. And we think what is realistic, really over the next 5 years or so, is to create 350 affordable housing units in a variety of ways. So this is not like, building necessarily, on a cornfield, 350 housing units. This is going to be done in a variety of ways, as identified in this particular table that you see. A portion of this will come as a percentage of market rate units that get built, or rehab. In this case, that first row, rehab vacant units, 3 and 4 bedrooms. If you got 100 units that get rehabbed, maybe 40 of those are affordable units assisted by, some kind of public subsidy at either the county or the state level. Accessory dwelling units. Now, this is a big one. And this is, if you're not familiar with ADUs or accessory dwelling units, this is a particular topic and housing subject that has gotten a lot of attention in the last 3 to 5 years. And it's happening all over the country in various states. Some are more aggressive than others. But this is a way to both get more affordable units developed, as well as assist homeowners, particularly older homeowners or seniors who want to maybe generate some extra income in creating these units. So think of, I've got a detached garage, and I, create a, second story on that garage, into an affordable, small affordable unit. Call it a studio, 700 square feet, whatever. This is what we're talking about, or building adjacent to the, current single family dwelling unit. This is happening around the country. And honestly, there is no one single solution to creating more housing, which is affordable to, working class, persons. It's going to take a variety of measures. This is but one of them. Another one is multifamily mixed income housing, studios to 3-bedroom units. This can be arrived at by having a requirement of 15% of the market rate units that get developed by private developers, setting aside 15% of those units for persons who qualify at 80 or 60% of AMI being area median income. Okay. Multifamily mixed use. This is where you've got ground floor commercial space. So in your commercial areas, or those zoned areas that allow for commercial space, and that would be zoned for mixed use, and upper floor, typically 2 to maybe 3 stories above that commercial space. That is another way to create affordable units. And then, of course, duplexes, townhouses, again, kind of a set aside feature there. In this case, we're recommending 20%. And then bungalows. Bungalows, this is a throwback because not a lot of bungalows get built anymore, although research has been showing that more and more large housing developers are starting to turn to building smaller housing units because they recognize that that can be profitable. Bungalows are considered starter homes as well as downsizing homes. So think of, the folks who raise kids in your town and now they're empty nesters. They're living in this 2,500 to 3,000 square foot house that they really don't care to maintain or pay the taxes on. They'd love to move to something smaller. That would be a bungalow. And to the extent that you allow for those smaller units to get developed in your community, again, you'd want to have some kind of set aside. I'm showing here a 20% set aside. So in this particular table, I'm showing you how you could potentially arrive at, in the next 5-6 years, 350 affordable housing units, which is that going to solve your problem? No, but it can make a little bit of a dent. So next. And so these are, again, this is in the report, and I'm just kind of give you a high level overview of the recommendations, actions, promote the creation of ADUs, or accessory dwelling units, using a marketing campaign. We're telling you, or identifying for you, the increase in the number of accessory dwelling units, and what time period, and how you can incentivize those. Next. I think it's important that on a periodic basis, you do the township, inventories their single family vacant housing units, to be aware of, how many there are and how many might be suitable to bring to market, particularly if they can be made, affordable to, middle income folks. Because literally every housing unit counts, right? You shouldn't take for granted any of the housing stock that you have. And if it's vacant, maybe there's a reason why it shouldn't be. And, if you can assist with making it available, all the better. Next. It's important, if this is if you're gonna realize more affordable / workforce housing, you have to establish affordable housing set aside program. I mean, this is done successfully in many communities around the country, many of whom have done it, and those policies have supported their businesses, quite honestly, and particularly businesses that hire low and middle income workers, because these are the workers who are most impacted by the lack of affordable housing. So creating a set aside program, and obviously being able to communicate the benefits of that to your business community are extremely important. And allowing for more multifamily development within your R2 zone. Obviously, here's the thing: is today in today's market, because of the expense of purchasing homes and the current interest rate environment and all of that combined, it's becoming increasingly difficult for young people to enter into the home ownership market. And we also know from research that there are many folks, whether they can afford to or not, who are just choosing to not be homeowners, but to be, quote unquote, their term of art now is forever renters. Now, I don't know if that's true forever, but long-term renters certainly. And so what that means is, if you want to continue to retain and or attract workers to your particular local economy, you need to have a certain amount of rental stock. And that rental stock doesn't have to all be multifamily. That some of that rental stock will be townhouses, or even, in fact, the matter of single family housing, because large developers today, if you're not aware, are getting into this niche market of rent or build to rent housing units. So they're building housing units in these big developments that otherwise you would see them and think, oh, these are new housing units I can purchase, but they're actually not for purchase, they are for rent. So renting in this environment is becoming just more acceptable, and honestly more palatable for folks who realize that they will never have the resources to own. So making sure that you have a sufficient amount of rental stock in your community is going to be vital, not only to the folks who want to live here, but particularly to your businesses. Next. This one might be controversial, but I'm going to throw it at you anyway. Create a rental inspection program. Here's the deal. For the most part, and I don't want to say you got better than 90% of the folks who rent housing units in your community are good actors, right? They want to maintain a nice housing environment for their renters, and they take care of their units, and they keep it up to snuff and up to code. But as we know, basically in every walk of life, there are bad actors. And there are folks, in your community, as in other communities, who do not take care of their properties, their rental properties. And, the folks who are renting feel like they don't have any place to turn to. And that obviously creates a challenge ultimately for people that want to move to your community. And I think it's important, if you want to continue to maintain a certain level and or increase housing, which is affordable and of quality. This is the important part, of quality to local workers. You want to make sure that at least on a random basis, housing units are inspected. And in our report, we identify how this works. So it's not like every single housing unit that's rented in your community needs to be inspected. There are units of a certain age. And then we are also recommending that, every 3 years. So it's staggered. But I think putting it in place keeps your landlords honest and make sure that they provide quality housing for the folks who want to live here and work here. Next. Questions?
Questions from the board first. Ethan, do you have any questions you want to ask?
Couple questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd asked this, and I'm trying to remember your answer from before. But we have, one of the big numbers that jumps out of the study is the 94% of primary workers who reside outside of the township. So of our 15,000 workers, jobs we have in the township, 90% are commuting from outside. That's a high number. What's a good range that you see in other communities? What's a healthy number of commuters that you see that's good for the local economy?
I can't say what's healthy necessarily, but I will say that number is high. I mean, based on all the analysis we do in various markets around the country, that is a high number. And here's why it makes sense to me is that your economy is really it's based on low and middle income workers, right? So you've got a lot of folks who are working in tourism and hospitality related industries, and you got the healthcare piece and farming and all that, right? These are folks who don't earn a lot of money, relatively speaking, which means they're not going to be homeowners most likely. Yet you got, a relatively high, among your housing stock as a percentage basis is owner occupied in many respects. So that really speaks to why you have a lot of workers who work in your community but don't live there.
Yeah, so I think when we last discussed, the number that stood out to me was 80% would be still high, but that might be an achievable one given where we are now. So I've pegged that in. I think that's worth discussing is, as the board, what percentage of people commuting do we want to have? What's the target? And that I think will then give staff direction as we look at creating new planning documents. That creates that piece. Of course, you mentioned with our tourism industry and our farming and ag industry and our healthcare and colleges. We have Harrisburg Area Community College,
right,
which is the largest employer in your study here. We've got, but all of Greenfield area, which is a big business park. There's a lot of great jobs there, and there's more jobs created. So that's our economic engine. I think I would recommend that our target we should try to decrease the number of commuters and keep the same number of jobs, which means how do we create workforce housing for those folks so they can live closer to where they work, which also decreases traffic, which everyone complains about when you put in housing. So that's the numbers that jumps out to me as a good goal to have.
Which, by the way, I will say, really speaks to density. Obviously, you are a community, that is, not as dense as many, or I should say, you're not a dense community in terms of dwelling units per acre relative to a place like Lancaster, and nor should you be. However, we're at a point in our history where there's certain communities, if they're going to continue to maintain their economic vitality, have to allow a bit more density to maintain it. So.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So this is related to, I think, what Ethan was saying also, but if you say by 2028, the demand is in need for 700 more residential units, how do you define demand? Is that by number?
Right. So, and I'm going to give you the high level view of what's in the report. When we calculate the unmet demand, in this case, 720 units or so, what we're saying is what we know based on projections for new households forming. So that could be one person to 5 people per housing unit. A household basically is a housing unit, so rental unit, home, whatever. That plus unmet, what we consider unmet demand from commuters. So the way we look at that, and again, this is in our report, we estimate between 3 and 5% of the commuting workers coming into your community, particularly those who are coming in from far away, might trade that commute if there is a housing unit, rental unit, whatever, that would be affordable to their income. So that gets into the calculation. We then take into consideration all the housing units you have. We wear out housing units because housing wears out over time, 1% per year, typically. We also consider what's physically obsolescent currently in your environment. These are older housing units, typically, that have not been well maintained and are basically not habitable. So they come out of the mix. And so that plus population growth, and we do the math, and again, we show you this in the report, is where we say, okay, if these numbers hold, including increase in, part of this is also increase in employment over the next 5 years, which we've estimated as well, that you would need, in order to accommodate the demand that would be unmet unless more housing were brought on. That's where that 720 comes in. Now, again, tomorrow, one or two developers could show up and say, you know what, I've got plans on this land to build 300, 400, 500 units. Well, automatically you just subtract those from our estimate, and there you go.
Right. Yeah, we've added 1,100 or so approximately, within a 3-year span. We've heard about, now they're real, they're not just ideas. But
right.
So, so then it brings up the issue of the consequence of not doing that. I'm hearing you say the consequence of not coming up with 700 by 2028 is to run the risk of economic impact, because, as you say, either the employers leave or employees leave, or the employers are going to have to pay more, which would be perhaps passed on to consumers or whomever, and or the percentage of commuters goes up.
Right. Or this yet another is that if you don't bring enough housing units to market, this is classic economic supply demand, that whatever you do have inventory wise goes up in price, whether that's a housing cost or a rental cost, right?
Yeah.
Neither of which is necessarily good. I mean, you're all familiar with what happens in different areas of the country. I mean, Silicon Valley is the poster child for this. And what's interesting there, you may be aware that there have been a few of the chieftains of high tech companies that got fed up of this issue, and they came together and pooled their own money to build, quote unquote, workforce housing for teachers, firefighters, and police officers who could no longer afford to live in their community where they serve. I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but just to say that that's an extreme version. But I think that as long as you have a healthy economy, which you do, and is likely to remain, if you don't have enough housing for those workers that make your economy go, which are principally low and middle income workers, that's going to have eventually a negative impact on the economy.
Thank you.
Mike. Ethan, more questions?
Yeah, just a clarification. So when I read through, it's page 81 in your supply demand analysis. The numbers are circular in the calculation. So if you make a spreadsheet out of it, you can adjust, pipeline up or down. It doesn't actually change the net housing unit demand. So the net housing unit demand is it's the same number from the pent up housing unit demand from commuting area workers, so the 14,060, so 14,000 times 5% is 700. So that's the number. And then when that number increases with the 0.5% projection, 5% of that is now 720. So all the other numbers wash out. and they're double counting. So the number you're actually calculating is saying, if we have 94% of people commuting and 5% of them stop commuting, so the number you're targeting is 89% commuting rather than 4%. So that's where the whole 700 comes from.
Right. I mean, we're not, I guess when you're saying circular, we're saying if nothing changes, that's what it is. If it changes, then obviously we would have to change our number.
If new units came on the market.
So if our pipeline was half or double, it would still be 700.
No, it would change. No, because if you got more housing units come on the market, we would bring that into our calculation, which would then lower the amount of units you would need. I mean, let's put it this way. If we said tomorrow, you told me 700 units were going to be introduced into the pipeline, we would assume, and everything else remains static, right? No increase in employment, then we would say that would be satisfied.
Assuming that the number of commuters fell by the same number.
Right, because now they're no longer commuters. Correct.
Yeah.
And that's one where we have to look at and say, is our current housing pipeline meeting the workforce demands?
Probably not.
No. So it's one where the housing we have in the pipeline currently isn't. We're not going to see that commuter number change as a result of the housing we have in the pipeline.
No, we took that into consideration. So, based on what we're seeing in your commuter population, you would need more housing to, bring commuters out of that category into I now live here and work here.
Yeah, and we know what the workers are making, so we know what the target affordability is. So, just for round numbers, if we're trying to get 5% of the commuters to live here, then we need 100 units. If we want 20% of the people to live here, then we need 3,000 units. So,
well, yeah, I mean, hearing me say this, I'm not suggesting you need to build 3,000 units because that also has fiscal implications, right? That's a whole different ball of wax because we weren't charged to do a fiscal impact analysis. I will tell you this, a lot of the units that need to be developed on net from a fiscal standpoint, you're going to make out. That is to say that the service costs associated with each unit relative to the tax revenues generated by each unit, both real property taxes as well as local, income tax or local service tax and wage taxes. On net, you'll be better off. And why can I say that? Because we do a lot of fiscal impact analyses on housing, and the type of housing we're talking about, studios, 1s, 2s, even, in some cases, 3-bedroom units, the fertility rate in this country is not even at the replacement level. Right. That is to say that we're not having nearly as many children as we once did, even 10 years ago, 15 years ago. That is to say, in many places around this country, and I would even say for your location, housing is economic development in the sense that you're going to net, surplus as opposed to, let's say, in the 80s or 90s when people were having kids all over the place, and it was a negative impact. I can almost bet you dollars to donuts that if you build more housing on net, you are going to realize a surplus in revenue as opposed to net negative revenue.
Roger.
Yeah. So it appears the shortest path to solving at least blocks of the bigger question is accessory dwellings. So do you have any good examples of communities that might look like ours, that how they netted out on an accessory dwelling, or is that that too new a process to evaluate at this time?
Actually, they're doing that currently in your city next door to you in Lancaster. We worked on their comprehensive plan and actually worked on their housing study as well. Lancaster has an accessory dwelling unit, ordinance. And yes, I mean, I'll say this: it is still relatively new in many parts of the country. However, what we're talking about, it's almost like you wouldn't even notice it, right? In some cases, an accessory dwelling unit is, 400, 500 square feet of space added to the property, either above the garage or behind the house, or they just, if they were zoning permitted, created a dormered, upstairs, whatever. So it's shown to be done. If you look at examples in other places where it's being done on a regular basis, it works. I mean, Princeton, New Jersey is a case in point. Princeton, New Jersey now has an accessory dwelling unit policy in place. And, and if you know anything about Princeton, these are people like, they come out of the woodwork if you do something that they think there's going to impact their values, and they're doing it. And, it's all about design standards and all of that, but it works.
Just to clarify, we already allow those by right residential zoning area, and the city copied our bill. Now, the one other thing I wanted to check in on would be the one thing that I thought was missing from the report was a look at our commercial zones and our industrial zones, which currently we prohibit. We're banning housing from those zones.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't you look at those areas in the study?
Well, we did look at the R2 area to provide housing. And you've got, I mean, here's the thing is for the number of housing units that we're recommending, and particularly in those zoning areas where you can do mixed use, which obviously, allows for commercial, we think that's sufficient for the time being. We certainly would not recommend or propose housing in your light industrial area. It's just, there's just incompatible uses and you're not at that scale. But we did make a recommendation, and we, had this discussion with Tara about, permitting housing in your R2 area.
R2 or C2?
R2. So do you?
Multifamily is.
Multifamily. Oh, I'm sorry. Got it. I was just confused. I got it. Residential is allowed in R2. It's called residential, but multifamily.
Right. And here's the thing too. We are at this point in time today, right? 5 years from now, we might be talking about expanding, where else you allow for housing. But I think one of the things I like to do when I work with communities is let's not, put it all out there at once. Let's do what's doable, right? Let's take tiny bites. Let's get some things accomplished, see where, how it happened, what things we need to adjust. And I think this report, in identifying, you're going to get more housing. I mean, there's no question about it. Developers are going to continue to bang on your door to build more because, again, there's just not enough housing in this country. The difference is we're saying, fine, allow it, but also try to hitch to that wagon housing which is affordable to the folks who are currently priced out of your community, who are important to your community. And so that's the difference here. And we think in terms of working with Tara and Colin that we've identified those locations in your community through some zoning changes and some policy changes that you can, in the next 5 years, achieve an increase in housing that you otherwise might not have. And then 5 years hence, hey, let's take another look at it. Okay, where else can we, make some changes to increase it further still?
Let me re-ask the question slightly differently. Did you look at our commercial 2 or commercial 3 zones to produce this study?
I did. We looked at everything. We didn't leave anything out. But here's the thing: is sure we could have said let's do a blanket coverage, like let's allow housing everywhere. But here's the thing: we want to kind of force housing, if you will, into certain locations first. Let's get that done, and then let's see. Again, after some time, let's see what things look like then.
So, for example, all the maps you have that show here's where workforce housing would make the most sense from here's where the sewer lines are, here's where the lines are, here's where the transportation is, here's where the existing road infrastructure is. That's our commercial 2 zone. It's also right across the street from this building, surrounded by houses, is light industrial, which also makes sense to look at for those areas. And those are areas that historically our pipeline is as big as it is because we took areas that were more industrial, our business park. We amended that zoning to allow the units, and the housing entered our pipeline. And the Rock Square overlay, which is in our commercial 3 zone, where we amended it to allow housing. And now, so our pipeline is 80-90% from changing to allow housing in what was more of an industrial zone and a commercial zone.
Right.
So I think it would benefit us to look at where have we had the most success, and can we duplicate that?
Commissioner, here's the issue that I have with that. And, I've been in this field for 32 years, the first 12 of which I worked in the public sector as an economic development professional, overseeing one of the largest industrial parks in the country, 10 million square feet under roof, in Lakewood, New Jersey. When you start introducing housing into, or certainly a certain threshold of housing into your industrial commercial areas, you now create a challenge to those businesses wanting to come there. Because I can tell you this, because when I was the executive director of the Lakewood Industrial Park, I got calls day in and day out about, complaints of trucks idling and, this, that, and the other. And, those two uses don't mix well. And also not only that, but to the extent that you want to have land area, available for those job producing businesses, when you're eating it up unnecessarily, because you do have other areas where that housing can go first, my preference would be to put it there, not, it's almost like low hanging fruit. Sure, you could take advantage of that, but in doing so, it's, the opportunity cost of, the industrial investment you could have had too.
Comments from the public? Or questions? Yeah, or questions as well. Anything online? More questions from the board?
Some comments and some suggestions for next steps. The action items I think we should look at, and those I think would require a little more time to go through. I can give you my initial thoughts on the 6 action items that are recommended. And I think there's some other ones out there that we could look at, but I think it would benefit us to take the time to look through those action items, maybe prepare 1 or 2 more, so we can deliberate on those. And I'd recommend even putting the action items up for an up or down vote, so that we can really dial in. So, for example, on the action items that are presented in the study, promoting ADUs in our accessory apartments by right, I think is low hanging fruit. Posting information on the website. I think we can also present to LCAR, ABC, and local realtor associations.
Yeah, there's different ways to market it.
The measurement is difficult because we currently don't register those. New ones that come in we'll get a zoning permit for that use, but anything that was just already pre-existing, we're not counting. I don't think action item number 2 is as an action I think we should take. The incentivization of the ADUs, I think letting people know they can do it will be.
I'll do that first. Yeah.
Incentive. I don't think we need to put any tax rebates in there. I think we should just, on a lot of these, stop banning housing and the market will come in and do the work. The inventory, I'm not sure how much work is involved in that, but that I'd love to get staff's input on. But they see the affordable.
Yeah, just real quick, the inventory of the vacant housing.
Vacant units.
Yes. Yeah. That's an interesting.
It's more of to what end if it's, I mean, we are part of the land bank and we can.
Yeah, we have tools
that we can use there. But I think we also have a pretty good idea of where those are now, and we have the census tract data. Action item 4, the affordable set aside program, I'm opposed to. I think that one functionally, you do get a benefit when you're basically doing an affordable set aside within units of, you're going to increase the sort of socioeconomic diversity in the building. But when you implement those programs, you do get increased prices more broadly, and it does work on decreasing supply. So it's both it tamps down your supply and increases your pricing when you look at the studies that have looked at that policy. There's other recommendations if you compare that with a density bonus. I think our board and staff were already asking people for more density. So it's not we don't have local opposition to increasing density in those areas. We could just allow more density. So we don't have to have that as a carrot to go out there or even tax credits for it. I know I brought up in the past, we could look at reducing our fees based off of the amount of affordable housing. So what are the fees that we're charging, whether it's a parkland fee or other fees that we could reduce as a carrot to incentivize. But I think having an affordable set aside may benefit a single property, but doesn't benefit the community as a whole from a housing pricing standpoint. Multifamily and residential too, absolutely we should do that as soon as possible. Rental inspection, as presented, I'm opposed to it because rental inspections and registrations, so all these imply that we have a rental registration, which we don't even have now. Now, rental registration there's a benefit to it, but it also will increase the cost. Any extra cost to a landlord is going to go right down to the tenant. So if you say, all right, you have to come in and register, that cost is going to get passed on. Similar with an inspection program. I would rather look at increasing the model we're looking at with our nuisance hotel to expand it to nuisance properties, nuisance rental programs, which is based off of the complaints. We have a property maintenance code already for non-owner occupied. We have complaints which we could track better, and we could take police and fire calls and complaints from our first responders as well to say, can we identify those nuisance landlords in another way and put in place an inspection program once you make the nuisance list. So like I said, the 90% of good actors, 95% don't have that regular cost, but we can also take care of those bad actors. So I think we can achieve that without putting in a full rental inspection program.
Commissioner, if I may, what I have in mind, and I totally hear, I mean, obviously economics is what I live, but yes, that cost would be passed down, but we're talking about something that's de minimis. For example, if you were to charge every one of your, landlords who rents property, and I'm just using this as a number, $100 annually to be part of this program, and you added that up for, 1 or 2 inspectors to go out on a staggered basis annually, such that, every 3 years, everybody who you'd want to get covered gets covered. And again, it wouldn't be every rental property. It really is a small cost relative to ensuring that your renters are, not living in a unsanitary or squalid conditions. I would just ask that you think that one through.
Anything else, Ethan?
Yeah, so I mean, the big ones would be, there's other things I think we should look at. I think we should, a year ago, I brought the proposal forward to allow multifamily in our commercial 2 zone. At that time, the discussion was, we're going to study that. Let's see the results in the study. I think we should look at that in our commercial 2 zone, even if it's similar to how we do it in our village zones, where we have more, it's a conditional use. So you're allowing it by conditional use, which would give us more oversight, and we can put some parameters around it, which would be closer to what we did in the Rockvale overlay. I think we should look at expanding our ADUs into the ag zone to allow 1 ADU on a property as well that's in the ag zone. We've got a lot of houses in ag zones that look just like the houses like on my street, on Millstream Road. On one side of the street, all the houses are allowed to have an ADU. On the other side of the street, where all the exact same size houses, they're not allowed. So I think it makes sense to look at those areas and also allow them as an accessory to any primary use in one of those areas. So right now, they're only allowed as an accessory to an existing residential use. But if you had, say, a non-residential use in that area, you're not allowed to have an ADU on that property. So those are the base ones. But I think the big picture goals for me, I have 4. I think we should target trying to get to 80% commuters. I don't think we're going to get there in 5 years, but I think that should be a target that we start to move towards.
10-year goal, maybe
20, even 10, 15. And we should target looking at our regulations. How do we reduce those regulations? Whether it's, we've already done a lot on parking minimums, but what other pieces can we drop down to make sure that housing is priced for our workforce? And we should target our urban growth areas near transportation, water, and sewer. And we should also look at how can we reuse existing land and buildings, whether it's ADUs or adaptive reuse. Again, we don't have as much vacant land in our commercial property, commercial 2 zone, but we've got plenty of vacant buildings that could be reused.
Thank you, Ethan. So just to back up just a little bit, your thought was put these as individual line items to get direction from each board member at some, maybe at a future next meeting, if we could document those things.
Look at those action items to provide direction for staff to say, all right, and it directs them to come back with a proposal we can look at. Or if we don't want to do it, they're not going to expend energy creating a draft program. Or it might be when they come back and say, we're going to put this as we redo our comprehensive plan. This is big enough for the comp plan, or a zoning amendment down the road, or this is a zoning amendment we could do in the next 6 to 12 months.
Assuming that direction from the board would be helpful to staff. We were able to give it at that level. I think we just have to talk through the logistics of how we're going to do that, but I would be in agreement with that. Other comments, Roger? Thanks again for your thoughts on that. Okay, Mike, any additional comments?
No, I mean, it's a lot of information and a lot of decisions that are going to, be in need of, as Ethan said, a focused review by the board to decide what we think is the best way to proceed. And I appreciate the advice to say there are small chunks you can take on this and move forward. I hear a lot of it and in the detail, and you got to dive in, but some of it is about asking the question of why didn't we do this before? What were some of the issues, the stumbling blocks for that? But in general, the economy is changing, there's shifting, and there are, demographic changes that are realities. I don't know if the overwhelming piece of this should be directed by lowering commuters, whether that's a common, one of the most common driving factors that it affects everybody. Okay, maybe I've never heard it until now. I mean, not just now, but in the last year. But we just heard some other reasons why commercial 2 zones maybe aren't the best focal point area. So I agree, we need to do some deliberation on the recommendations and maybe some other creative ideas we have.
Yep, great. Thank you. Steph, any thoughts on the conversation?
Just that at some point in time, I think the board should take action on the plan itself.
Understood. Yeah.
To be modified before.
Yeah.
you
Yeah, I guess.
Adopt it, or you satisfied with adopting it now and then working through the details, or
Yeah.
however you want to approach that, but some action.
Yeah.
At some point. Should be taken.
Yeah.
We adopt the study minus the action or the recommendations and handle those recommendations individually at a later meeting.
Sure.
I'd be in favor of that.
Because I think the data is good. And it's just accepting that data, but then the action items, I think we should deliberate on and provide more direct direction to staff.
It's exactly what it's intended to do. It's the recommendations are not to say accept them as is. It's to start a discussion on which you can deliberate and ultimately fine tune and arrive at where you want to arrive at.
Good. Okay. Well, I'll accept a motion second, and then if there's, give you guys another chance for public comment, the board and the public.
Make a motion to adopt the housing study as presented, recognizing we'll be looking at the action items in more detail at later.
Okay, great. Motion made, second by Mike. Okay, any comment from the board members? I do want to thank Todd and his team for the work they did. Appreciate all the hard work. And any comments from the public on the motion? Yeah, sure. Just come up and say your name and address. Great.
We are Kristen Hershey, and we are co-directors of Conestoga Valley Seeds, local nonprofit in the area. Relatively new, but we just need to say thank you. Thank you for addressing this. One of our key points of focus is housing. So we know this is super important. We're seeing it again and again with the families that we work with. If we can be a part of helping in any of this, we would love to. So thank you.
Thank you for this work, and thank you for continuing to look at this need in our community.
Thanks for coming. Great. Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Okay, next on the agenda, we have 10B, the Newslinger Stormwater Management Plan 24-2-2313 Lehman Road. State your name and.
Good evening. My name is Molly Hughes. I'm in principal engineer with Red Bar Consulting, and I prepared and worked on the stormwater management.
Great.
Land and body. So recently we purchased a 1.5 acre parcel that was recently subdivided on Lane Road. Its new address is 2113.
Yeah, 2313. Okay. Yeah.
So where we are in the process already is that we've submitted the plans in January, and we addressed the first round of DMA comments in February. And then just on the 14th, we received a second round of comments that had really some minor things to wrap up and some administrative comments as well. I could go through some of those, but the plan is relatively simple. They're proposing to put in a driveway and a residential structure, as well as a shed wood shop in the local. The stormwater is controlled by tension, a rain garden that stormwater from the property is directed via vegetated swales and a diversion berm, all captured within the rain garden. And then it discharges to the upper corner of the property to a stream just located right off of the property that it was recently subdivided off of. Again, as I stated, most of the comments are addressed from DM. They have already secured and obtained their septic permit, well, they've turned in the SEO documents for their sewage on-lot disposal systems. We addressed a lot of little comments on the plans. One of the comments in the zoning each of in the right of way. So all fencing has agreements from the properties. The estimate has been put together and that's under review right now. There was comments about the drainage easement and that has been addressed. We put a meets and bounds on that drainage easement. One of the comments was to do with the loading ratio for the basin. Now this property is located in karst geology, but it's not a real sinkhole prone karst geology. So the loading ratio means the impervious drainage area to the bottom of the rain garden is supposed to be designed for a 3-to-1 ratio. So that's 3 impervious to 1. And it does meet that requirement. It, however, does not meet the requirement of the 5-to-1 infiltration ratio. However, we have requested a modification of this section, and as well, we have a geologist report that is forthcoming to recommend that modification from the ordinance is still within your solid engineering practices. So we do have a modification letter that was submitted for your.
Yeah, March 8th. Yeah, we have that. Yep.
So we again, we did have the site evaluated by a geologist. In the majority of the runoff to that basin, there's a self-vegetated area. It's mostly lawn area. So it should have almost no impact to the rain garden. And the maximum hydraulic loading, that is the maximum depth in the rain garden, is only 100-year storm event. So.
Okay.
Other comments on the plan were a riparian corridor. Is reflected. In this modification, we have it's on sheet 103. That would be the 32 times 7. I think you need to go.
We trust that it's there.
Property. The requirement of the ordinance is to have a 35-foot riparian buffer off of the top of the stream. From the top of the stream, to 35 feet wide on each side of the stream. And so that just creates a little corner of the northwest corner of the. It's about what's a triangle shape, 12 feet wide or so. Excuse me, Molly. Page 3 of the DMA report has.
Oh, okay.
Change and added that to the plans.
Yeah.
That image doesn't show where the proposed
I think it's on this one.
water facility is going to be. There's no conflict.
No.
Structure.
So it's this corner right here, the property. The stormwater is discharging actually right to that corner and then going to the drain.
The riprap apron is.
There is a riprap apron in it. There's also, we proposed trees and. Remaining outstanding are the operation and maintenance agreement with the review. Yeah. Everything else should be
Yeah.
And anticipation building this home, the Schwingers have sold their existing home to their children and are living in, are basically living in their children's house right now. So they are very eager to take over.
The house.
I'm sure it's great.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Yeah, sure.
Application that hasn't been reviewed yet by DMA. No, but they were the ones that actually requested that we make them, that we.
You need to look, the loading ratio one. Yeah, I was going to use, has that been, have we received anything back from DMA?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. So can we make it subject to DMA's approval for the 302A2 loading ratio? And we haven't received response back. Do we expect a response back to the March 15th letter from Molly to DMA? Or this is to Colin, I'm sorry, but.
Right, and it went to DMA as well.
Okay, yeah. So do we expect, I mean, it's pretty clean. Yeah. So make
Condition on the letter, this is just. a detailed
right, this is
response.
just a response. So the DMA letter and on. So basically, yeah, is that a motion?
I can make a motion to approve the stormwater management plan, conditioned on the township engineer's letter, dated March 4th. And approving a modification request, for 302.A.2.c on the loading ratio, conditioned on township engineer review.
Ethan, thank you. Second by Roger. Any board comment? Any public comment? Applicant? Good. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
I can't wait to ride past my bicycle. My regular route. Taking that corner pretty fast.
Okay, we have 10C supervisor discussion items, public comment, meeting rule.
Staff cleaned up some typos and those sorts of things on. Yet had it reviewed by township.
Yeah. Based on, yeah.
If there are any additional substantial changes, we'll have it on your agenda for action in April.
And would we, do we have to change the announcement at the beginning of the meeting? Is there any, or is it just when it comes passed as a resolution, it is what it is?
We could look at that. I mean, we do need to, sort of get the message out.
Yeah, maybe we just modify it. Might be able to simplify the current.
Or just say we operate based off the rules which are in the back of the room or on the website.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so it might be a simple change, but yeah, I would just suggest making an update to that.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Any other comments about the resolution?
That's good.
Yeah, good to move forward with that. Do we need we don't need any motion. It's just yeah, not yet. Right, of course, until you have it reviewed. And the township website, other comments on the township website?
We're looking at all the provided, but if there's more, if there are other things that have come, but we want to hear those too.
Great. Any other comments for staff on that? Okay, move on to 11A, reappointment of township solicitor. Quick on that.
Yes, Susan Piper, township solicitor, has been with Langer Thomas. That firm has decided that they're not any longer going to provide municipal legal services. She's moving to Appalachia Committee, and that would recommend that the board take action to reappoint her as township solicitor with the
motion.
Make a motion to approve, reappointment. Not be,
Do we have to make that as of March 15th,
That would be ideal, yes.
sorry,
as of March 15th.
2024?
Second.
Okay, made by Roger, thank you. Second by Mike. Any board or public comment on this item? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, motion passes, thank you. Okay, award of bids for used public works equipment.
Yeah, the board authorized us to place these items on the municipal bid. Those bid, that auction bidding process is concluded. And you have a list of high amounts that were offered for each item. All of them together, $36,494 in value. We'd like your approval to go ahead and complete those sales.
Okay.
Motion to approve, or award these items that were sold on municipal as presented.
Thank you, made by Ethan, second by Roger. Any public comment or board comment? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next, we have 12.
Just wanted to provide the board with updates on where we work with various efforts on the Franklin Heritage Pathway project. We've got the two county 2040 projects that we're continuing to work on. Made some progress through the PennDOT required ECMS project process, I should say, and so we hope to get those two, they have to be done together per PennDOT, to get those underway with the select consultant shortly. Those two projects have to do, the one would be to continue, look at how we continue the pathway along and parallel to Walnut Street. And the other one would be to continue it down Pitney Road and tie back in both west into the city. Third one is funding that we've gotten through the local share portion of CFA dollars. And we're taking all the proposals now to help us with that effort. That effort will focus on getting the trail from where it is currently, the west end of Oakland Drive out to Pitney Road, and related issues within that neighborhood. And then if there's still money left there, would look at the area east of the Ben Franklin Boulevard trailhead and gather data and information that would be needed in order to eventually prepare construction plans for that extension. So we're going to take those proposals later this month and hopefully have that on the end of April to get a consultant on board there.
Good.
She's
Yeah, no, please, no, keep going.
We voted on the conference in April, actually on Tuesday, April 16th. So as your voting delegate, asking board for your input on these. That can happen at the next meeting because it's, before the vote happens. So just wanted to get these in your hands and give the board opportunity to discuss them and provide input.
Yeah, I went through them. I generally agreed with all PSAT's recommendations.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know. I thought I would catch at least one or two, but I was
As opposed to anything from Chester.
yeah, exactly. Which is interesting. But yeah, no, I didn't have any problems this time.
And the ones that have been done in previous years, they usually just voice vote, so might as well just go along with it.
Yeah, Mike or Roger, I'm Roger, you've been on the board and Mike first as well, but yeah, usually there's a few that we typically disagree on, but this year was pretty clean. Any other thoughts on that? If not, we can, I guess it's not really a vote, but it's just,
Really, I was just looking.
yeah, no, I think,
Until next meeting.
yeah, yeah, and if you guys read through it and think maybe we may be reading something the wrong way, please let us know. We'll happy to discuss it next meeting. Well, yeah, great. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. So moved by Ethan, second by Roger. Any public comment or board comment? Congrats to the bowling team. Yeah, going to states.
Oh, that's it.
Oh, that's over, but nationals, that's right. It said they lost, but they still have a, well, they came in eight. I'm sorry. I don't know my bowling culture. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, motion to adjourn, and all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?